Hey guys, so I wanted to come on here and talk about this story, and it involves some black men who were in Fresno, California, and it looks like they went into a T-Mobile store, completed a transaction, and while they were in the process of that transaction, someone called in a forced robbery, and then which led to black men being held at gunpoint outside of the store and being belittled and demeaned and degraded and made to crawl across the pavement. And I'm going to play this video for you guys. Yeah, as you see, it's nearly 4 minutes, which I'll play the whole video. But I want to say this because I hate seeing situations like this where this happens to black men. I hate seeing situations where this happens to black men, and I will continue to reiterate that I hate seeing situations like this where it happens to black men. What I also hate, though, is seeing situations like this where these things are happening to black men, and then all on social media, I'm seeing aggression from black men being directed towards everything except for the system of white supremacy that's doing the most damage to them. Because we have a number of dudes in the community, obviously not all of them, but there is a sector of people, and I think really the warrior-minded black men really need to forget about trying to align themselves and unite with this sector of black men who want to sit up here and deflect from the reality of what's going on and blame everything on black women, because that's counterproductive to the plight of the black man. The plight of the black man is the plight of the black man really it goes hand in hand with the black woman. So anybody who tries to separate black men's plight from black women's plight isn't really doing a service to anyone in the black community. And that's why I say the black men who really want to unite and who are really serious about ending white supremacy, they would do best to separate themselves from the sector of black men that think they're going to have some revolution that the black woman won't be involved in, because that's not the case. And if you're spending most of your time on social media attacking your only allies who are black women, that's not productive anyway. Even anybody who suggested black men can be liberated without black women, or any black woman who suggested that black women can be liberated without black men, those are people that we should just separate ourselves from in the black community. As a man, you should not be on social media attacking the women of your community, and you're not doing anything to hold white supremacy accountable. That being said, I'm still waiting for any of these pro-black conscious so-called leaders in the black community, the black male ones, to explain to me what they're going to do about white male or holding white males accountable for white supremacy, because they continue to talk about how much black women need to be held accountable, but they never really mention what they plan to do to hold not only just the system of white supremacy accountable, but maintainers of the system of white supremacy, like these people who keep falsely calling the police on them, who 90% of the time, and really in nearly all cases, have been white women. And it's funny because in these areas like California, they have high rates of interracial dating between black men and white women. So it's really interesting how the people who you're dating and you're advocating today, and when I say you're, obviously it doesn't mean all of you, obviously, but the ones who dating them are the main ones calling the police on you and trying to get you murdered. Because at this point, whenever an establishment or a person within an establishment and within the dominant society calls the police on a black person, be it man, woman, or child, you have to assume that they're doing so with the sole intent of getting that person killed. They know what society we live in. They know what time it is. So at this point, they're doing it purposely. But what we haven't been seeing is what black men plan to do in response to that. We never really hear what they do in response to that. And whenever someone asks the question of what they plan to do in response to that, all we get is excuses about what they can't do and why they can't fight. So I want to go into this video, and then I'll come back with some commentary. And as you see, he's crawling on the floor.
They don't got it. Man, what's going on?
Now, if you notice on here, they're obviously making him slip. How degrading is this? And this is what we see. Meanwhile, we see black men telling black women they need to submit.
Y'all didn't report nothing, say nothing, call nobody, or?
And of course they didn't. I don't think any of the employees in there did anything. But this is in Fresno, California.
No, back.
Sir, step out of the sun. Go step out. Step out and stay right there, okay? Just stay right there so I can control the direction, okay?
That's his girlfriend.
Hey, calm down, man. Let them do what they gotta do.
I'm the uncle. I'm gonna go slow.
Come out here. Who else is inside? Why would this truck go out? You started being robbed. What are you guys doing in there?
So you look over.
Wait a second. Okay.
Okay, we got called here, okay? We didn't just randomly show up there.
You see anybody else in there? Are you guys okay?
Yeah.
What happened?
It's very difficult to hear what they're saying at this point. And it's funny, like, I really wish he wouldn't have turned off his camera. But so this was the Facebook post. And if you look at, we're going to read over it. I just want to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier. I hate this thing that's coming up on with this Facebook thing at the bottom. But it says, so yesterday, me and LaBelle Johnson, why is he putting these people's government names out here? And I get that he's tagging them in there on Facebook, but don't put their names out there. But it says, so they went to AT&T on Blackstone and Shaw at 12 noonish. AT&T approved them. Well, none of that we need to hear. We don't need to hear it. And I don't know why he's putting all that business out there. It says, so after chatting it up with a T-Mobile representative, exchanging social and identification information, and then receiving my personal out-of-the-door price, which was too high, my nephew LaBelle and I proceeded to leave. That's when I saw an officer with weapon unholstered in hand waiting for anyone to exit the T-Mobile. I alerted my nephew, who then, under the impression that we are not criminals or actively committed a crime, went to see what I was talking about. He went to the front door and they saw him and immediately said, hands up. He follows their every direction and face crawls to the cop using only feet and fingers for propulsion, while at the same time having 6 pistols aimed at his face. My nephew's wife then comes back in his Mercedes to the father of her children at gunpoint. We all then verbally restrained her. She didn't know we were robbing T-Mobile either, so she's hysterical when she arrives back. The video shows the rest, but this is ridiculous. Basically, T-Mobile reps felt threatened by two black men, one of which drives a Mercedes, and the other literally had $1,000 in his pocket and wanted an iPhone X finance. We were not there to rob anyone. I would like to praise the well-trained officers that responded as they were doing their job, and no one was hurt. This was racial profiling at its finest, prejudice in its precipice, and T-Mobile should do something about the highly uncalled for but totally avoidable misunderstanding. It turns out T-Mobile called security, and security, unarmed and under the impression that the store really was being robbed, in turn called the FPD. But the crazy part was that FPD would have came normally, not with guns drawn and adrenaline pumping. That's because either security and or T-Mobile officials literally said they were being robbed, which was a big misunderstanding. Now, I can tell you just by the way he wrote this that he's not going to do anything. Because he's sitting here saying, oh, it was just a misunderstanding. No, it wasn't a misunderstanding. You don't misunderstand whether you were robbed or not. That's number one. It's very determinable whether you're being robbed or not. So what they did is they racial profiled with the intent to get black people killed. And again, this is something that these black men can do something about, because they can actually have an open and shut case of racial discrimination against T-Mobile. How likely is it that you think they're going to sue T-Mobile though? Not likely, because of what he put on Facebook. All T-Mobile would have to do is bring up what this dude put on social media, which was, oh, it was just a misunderstanding. And that right there would hinder his case. See, because the reality of it is in these situations where they're being approached by white supremacists, they're very submissive. Like, even to the degree it doesn't sound like the police told him to crawl on the floor. He decided to crawl on the floor as a sign of submission. And then if you notice it, his entire way of talking about this was to give understanding to T-Mobile for their racial profiling. So even in situations where black men can do something about white supremacy, they don't do it. Just like the Starbucks dude who sat up there and said it wasn't a racial issue, it was a human issue. Just like these people who are sitting here talking about, oh, it was just a misunderstanding. T-Mobile honestly believed they were being robbed. How? In the absence of anybody coming in there to actually rob the store, you can't justify saying that you were robbed just because some black people walk into a store. But rather than fight this case, this dude is sitting here. This dude is sitting here condoning it. And then it said the men put the blame on the store workers for racially profiling them and say nothing they did hinted at potential robbery. But again, the store workers are T-Mobile workers who would be sitting there abiding by what they think is the company policy. And I know in every instance they don't do that. People are just racially profiled. But the reality of it is that what are these black men doing about this situation? It said T-Mobile issued a statement Friday evening. The safety and comfort of our customers, our TPR dealers, and their employees is paramount to us. We are taking this incident very seriously and are actively investigating to determine exactly what occurred. Though we have found no evidence that the employees acted improperly, we would take definitive action if we did. So right there, T-Mobile is condoning the racism of their employees. In the video, Johnson is heard shouting at Bush from the ground. He sounds panicked. The video cuts out after police order Lamar to come out of the store with his hands up. The audio is still on. An officer is heard asking Johnson if he had the gun on him. He doesn't. What are you guys doing in there? One officer asks. Just trying to get a new phone. Lamar replies. The officers tell Bush to stay back. Wait a second and we'll explain. Okay, the officers say. Another officer says, we've got called here. We didn't just randomly show up here, okay? Ultimately, police detained and handcuffed Johnson and Lamar, but did not make an arrest. Police were responding to a 911 call from the shopping center security company about a potential robbery in progress at the store. But Johnson and Lamar said they had no intentions of robbing anyone and had no weapons. Johnson was on his way to work at the Foster Farms processing plant and had his ID badge around his neck. Something he says a criminal trying to get away with a robbery wouldn't do. They already know that, so you don't need to explain that to them. But again, you see this scenario with two black men, both of whom I'm sure at some point on Facebook were talking about single black mothers, child support, black women wearing weave, or whatever. At some point, you can best believe they were aggressive towards some black woman, yet in the face of white supremacist men, they are cowardly and submissive. And really, and in reality, if you look at most black men in society, that's what they're doing. Because look at that black dude that was on the panel with me, where he got all overly aggressive, tried to act like he was rah-rah and hard when he really wasn't. But if a situation like this went down, he would have been acting submissive. He would have probably peed on himself. Lamar was looking to get a credit check at the store to get a quote on how much money he would have to put down for a phone, and had given an employee his ID, he said. The men, who are black, says there's only one explanation for the 911 call: their race. I don't see what made them call and what would give them the suspicion that they were going to get robbed. We aren't up to anything, Johnson said. It's just crazy. I don't understand. Nobody once came and apologized for what happened. Johnson cried on Friday, retelling the story, pointing to national incidents of unarmed black men being shot by police. He also pointed to recent stories of people wrongly calling the police. Look, I'm just going to say, if this less would have to happen to me, and I'm taking some legal action against them. I was just watching, again, back to the article, it says, I was just watching videos about the stuff the other day. To be in the same situation myself, it just scared the shit out of me, Johnson said through tears. So he can sit up here and cry. Again, look at the image. This is the image that they're putting at the forefront for black men in the face of racial terrorism. This is the image that they're putting out for black men. Not that black men are going to get up and fight. Not that black men are going to be strong, but that black men are going to cry and whine and complain like children in the face of racism, but yet all you see over social media is black men attacking black women. What does that do for the image of black men? That's what black men should be asking themselves. Every time I think about it, I get teary-eyed. It was the day before my 3-year-old daughter's birthday. Johnson acknowledged that one of the two employees was a man of color, but he and Lamar believed they were racially profiled. This was a racial profiling at its finest, prejudice in its precipice, Lamar said on Facebook. And T-Mobile should do something about this highly uncalled for, but totally unavoidable. Look at what he's calling it: misunderstanding. Now, then he sits here and gives accolades to the police, which I would say in this scenario, it doesn't look like the police were wrong. If somebody is saying there's a robbery in place, they don't have a choice but to come and with weapons drawn, because the reality of it is most weapons are armed, or most robberies are armed. That's just a reality. The thing of it is that what are the black men gonna do about this situation? And look at what he says. Bush said her family is on edge thinking of what could have happened. All the time, Johnson says, babe, look at this video. Look at how they did that black man. When I saw all these white cops having guns to his face, that's the first thing that came to mind. I thank God he's dead. He's not dead, but never thought it would happen to us. How many black people are sitting around ignoring issues like this because they're thinking it's not going to happen to them? And just like those dudes on that panel, when I asked him, what are you doing about white supremacy? Because you're one altercation away from being the next hashtag. And every black man is, really. But what are they doing to fight it? They're not doing anything to fight it. They're too busy attacking black women's hair and makeup choices all on social media and asking them for submission. All the while, all we see is passivity, submission, and weakness, which is really what the world sees, coming from black men in response to racial terrorism. Because nowhere in this article did anybody mention a lawsuit that they were going to be placing. Nobody mentioned the lawsuit that they were going to be filing against T-Mobile. If you feel like some T-Mobile employees racially profiled you, why are you not holding them accountable by the law that says that you can't racial profile and you can't racial discriminate against people? Again, there have been multiple instances where black men had the opportunity to fight and they refused to do it. They refuse to do it. What's stopping this black man in here other than passivity and cowardice? What's stopping him from finding an attorney and filing a lawsuit against T-Mobile? Because T-Mobile is responsible for the actions of its employees, okay? And if you can sit up on social media as a group of black men, because you're not being judged as individuals, you're being judged as a collective group. So despite the fact that this is an incident, you have a number of different incidents with individual black men that reflects on the entire black male diaspora, okay? That's what happens. It reflects on the entire black male diaspora. So when you see situations like this happening, and all you see is passivity from black men, what does that tell the world about black males? And then whenever you see them getting aggressive, you only see them getting aggressive against black women. So it raises the question again, what does that say about black men? That's really what the question needs to be raised, because this is going to continue to happen. Nothing is stopping this black man from holding them accountable. So there are a number of different things that black men could be doing to fight systemic racism and white supremacy and send the message that they will not tolerate themselves, their women, and the children of their community being racially terrorized, but they refuse to do so. Because again, let something like this happen to me. Actually, less has to happen to me. All you have to do as an establishment is number one, tell me I have to leave the store, and then threaten to call the police on me. And right there, I'm initiating some legal consequences against you. Right there. That's all you have to do. So T-Mobile should be paying out this dude at least $1 million. And they could probably get more. But rather than fight white supremacy, they choose to fight black women's hair and makeup. And I'm not saying these individual dudes did that. I'm saying as a group, the image that black men are sending out, because you're not being regarded as individuals, you're being looked at as a collective group. What message are you sending, and what message does society see when they see black men responding to these countless situations with passivity? Meanwhile, they're on social media demeaning and attacking and being very aggressive and hostile towards their women. You guys let me know. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe, and share the video, and I'll see you in the next one.